Hey folks, this is Ryan from ORS Cross Country Skis Direct, aka Onion Boy. We're gonna look at some boots. It's all about the boot, you know. You can have a great ski, but if you don't have a nice boot on your foot, you're not gonna have a good day. One, obviously the boot needs to be warm and comfortable. That's critical. But two, the boot needs to be appropriate with the ski you choose. Okay, you have to have a boot that will work with your ski. And there are certain boots that don't work with certain skis and vice versa. So once you've picked out your ski, then you can look at the boots. Now the boots that we put in our packages, we feel are the appropriate boots with those skis. And we actually give you some options. And the options are determined by what your priority is. This is the lineup of backcountry boots. Okay, this is a backcountry boot, and this is a backcountry boot. Totally different boots, but yet both considered backcountry boots. Okay, now you've got your light-duty backcountry boots all the way up to your heavy-duty backcountry boots. Why do you want a heavy-duty backcountry boot? A plastic boot? You know why? Because your idea of backcountry fun is pointing skis down the steepest thing you can find. This person, however, their idea of backcountry fun is kind of kicking and gliding around off a groomed surface. Okay, you don't need a big heavy boot on your foot. And when I say heavy, I don't mean these are super heavy, but they're overkill if you're skiing around on a narrow ski. So I'm going to quickly walk you through the boots, and then I'm going to kind of show you which, in my opinion, skis they're best suited for. And then we're going to talk about bindings. And we're all going to do it in 10 minutes or less. So here we go. The Rossignol Bc X2 is your lightest duty. This is an NNN BC boot. NNN means it clicks into a system-style binding. Attaches with a bar underneath the toe. There are two grooves. That is the NNN BC outsole versus the NNN BC bindings. There's a couple options in there. I'll show those to you in a minute. This is a light-duty backcountry touring boot. This boot is good for the Rossignol BC 70, and could probably work okay on the Alpena light terrain or maybe the Malzus Eon. And I say maybe if just going in a straight line relatively is your thing, you like a wider ski because of the stability and flotation, then you don't necessarily need a boot with a ton of support. And support really comes from the sole and the cuff. So the BC X2 is, it's a pretty light duty boot. You can kind of twist it. It doesn't have a ton of stiffness built into it. So, it's going to turn a narrower ski pretty well, but the wider the ski, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to try to turn that ski in deep snow and the boot's just going to twist. No good. If you want a heavier duty BC boot, but still staying in the NNN BC binding system, then you can go with the Alpena 1550. This is the men's 1550. This is the women's. Same boot, except the fit's a little bit different for ladies. And you can see that it has a cuff, it has a strap, it has a stiffer heel counter, the sole's a bit stiffer. And this is a beefier NNN BC boot, and also available in a women's fit. And I'll also say this is one of the best NNN BC boots you can get. Super light and comfortable, but got a lot of support. People love it. It wouldn't be overkill on a narrower ski, but because it's got that extra cuff, BC 70, yes indeed. Alpena light terrain, you could potentially put it on the cross terrain. Go on the Eon, the Malzus Epic, no problem. And I would say, the S-bound line for the Fisher S-bounds, the 88, or maybe even the 98. Now again, I'm saying maybe even because if you're choosing, say, the S-bound 98 and you want to do turns, don't get this boot. But you like the wider 98 platform for stability and softer snow, you're shuffling around, perfectly fine. The thing about an NNN system, you're connected at the toe. For kicking and gliding, it feels a lot more natural, not lighter. You can get way up higher on the toe. It feels like a more of a classic touring boot, whereas the 3-pin or 75 millimeter interface is certainly heavier duty, not as natural and free feeling, but it powers the ski a lot better. So you decided, well, power is my thing. I'm going to compromise a little on the touring end because I want more power going downhill. So then you move into your 75 millimeter backcountry, and we're going to move the plastic ones out of the way here, and we're going to move the NNN BC out of the way and kind of highlight these two models. We got the Alpena 1575 and the Fisher Bc X2. You can see just looking at them, the Bc X2 has the articulating cuff rather than a fixed cuff. By the way, the 1575 is the same exact boot as the 1550, only with a 3-pin sole, a Vibram 75 millimeter sole. So again, same kind of story as before, where you've got your lighter duty option and your heavier duty option. This is going to be a little more comfortable when you're touring around because it's lighter weight and not as cumbersome, and but still a pretty stiff boot. So now we're looking at, you know, you could certainly go with a BC70 if downhill control is your #1 thing. But again, being a narrower ski, not really necessary. But you know, now we're talking pretty much any of these skis, with the exception of the big fatties. Like I wouldn't put it on the BC 125 or the BC 110. Definitely not the Vector from Volet, and I might not put it on the 112. But again, if you like that big wide ski for the floaty thing, no problem at all. This is certainly going to turn it, just not. You're not going to be able to overpower the ski. That's what you want to be able to do in deep snow. You want to be able to overpower the ski. You want to be able to make a turn, and the ski's going to respond. If the boot twists, you just run into a tree. So there it is. Now the 675 from Fisher. Great, great boot. Articulating cuff, really stiff sole. This is a powerful, non-plastic boot. You can actually put it on pretty much any of these skis, with the exception of the Vector BC and the BC 125. These are your big fat boards. Think of these as tele skis with scales on the bottom. So there you go. Anywhere in this spectrum, all the S-bounds that we offer, the Rossignol Bc 110, any of the Modzus models, light terrain, cross terrain, Alpena, no problem at all. Great, great boot. Now, some people get intimidated when we start talking about plastic backcountry boots. They think they're heavy, they think they're going to be uncomfortable. That's not true. They are very, very comfortable. They're relatively lightweight. This isn't like a Telemark boot that's going to be a lot taller, have more buckles, and a lot more powerful. But this is so that you have maximum control going downhill for those big skis. You're looking at these boots because you know that you want to have the best time. You're looking for that ridge line. You're looking for that avalanche slide. You're looking for turns. You're looking for powder. You're looking for steeps. You want to be able to have a great day and not flail. So you need a powerful boot. And we have two options. We have the Garmon Excursion. We have this available in women's. It looks exactly the same, but it's a little bit narrower fit. And then we have the Scarpa T4. Now the difference between these two boots, and there's quite a bit of difference in price. The Scarpa T4 actually is less expensive, but it's actually it's a powerful boot. It doesn't have the I consider the Excursion a little more friendly for touring because it has a softer bellows. So it is a plastic boot, but this is a softer durometer P-backs, so it flexes very nicely in the bellows. So for touring, it's going to feel kind of like a leather boot, but yet it's a powerful plastic boot. It's a lighter boot. And it's just a classic boot. I mean, people know and love this boot. It's got a great fit. So, you know, it's going to stand tall on its own, being the good old Garmon Excursion. The Scarpa T4 is a little bit less expensive, a little more utilitarian. It doesn't have the different durometer, so it doesn't flex in the bellows as nicely. But otherwise, you know, it's a relatively light, powerful backcountry boot with a ski walk mode as well, meaning you can flick that open and it'll kind of let the upper cuff hinge for walking around a little bit easier. Where do you put these boots? I'll just use this, and it represents both boots, by the way. Okay, yeah, you want to put it on the beautiful Vector BC. The Rossignol Bc 125. Oh yeah, big fat boards made for turns. Go ahead, put it on the 112 S-bound. Put it on the 98 S-bound. You know, you can put it on any of them, but it's certainly going to be overkill if you're backcountry touring all the time. If you're looking for turns, though, don't be afraid. The BC 110, the Anum, the Epic, cross terrain, you know. Again, the narrower BC skis, maybe overkill, maybe not. Depends on what you're looking to do, but you know, this can handle the most extreme terrain that you can find. All right, so now you've figured out your ski, your boot. What about the bindings? Let's talk about the bindings real quick. N&N BC starting off, there they are. We have the automatic and the manual. Again, more for lighter duty touring around. They're not going to power a ski very well, but the N&N Magnum has the wider base plate, so it does a much better job. Puts a little more leverage on the edge, a little more stable. So this is a more powerful N&N BC binding. This is an automatic, really for light duty touring. Then we go into the 3-pin models. We have the Volet 3-pin HD, the Volet 3-pin with cable, and the Volet 3-pin hardwire. Here you've got, you know, a light-duty backcountry 3-pin without a cable, so the cable helps to stiffen up the boot interface, makes it laterally stiffer, more active, meaning that when you flex forward, the springs will put pressure on the ski. So, you know, this interface does steer a ski better because it gives you a lot more contact with the boot versus the NNN BC, where you're just kind of attached at the very end by the toe bar, clicked in like that. So you've got now wings that go to the ball of your foot to help steer, but there's no cable. So, you know, great binding to slap on the narrower to mid-fat backcountry skis. And, you know, you could use them with any of these boots that have a 75mm sole. If you want a little extra oomph, then you go with a cable. And the cable can be removed when you don't need it, so you're stuck on a long tour, you take it off, you get to the top of a ridge, you want to point the skis downhill, you slap the cables on, it tightens up everything, gives you more lateral support. This is a really popular binding, you'll find it in a lot of our packages, we love it. And we love the HD too. And then the hard wire, this is a hard rod instead of a spring cable with cartridges, so now you're talking more power, really only appropriate with a plastic boot. You don't want to put this binding on a soft boot, it'll just eat it up. But the pins are there so you can take the cables off when you don't need them, so that's the nice thing about the pins. And it's kind of a unique binding, having hard wire with compression cables or compression springs and pins. So it also comes with a riser, brings the binding up, give a little more leverage to the ski. Then we talk about the Switchback and the new Switchback X2. So Volet came out with a Switchback touring Telemark-Backcountry binding a few years ago, super popular binding, and then this year they upped the game with the new X2. They both have the same fundamental feature, which is a free pivoting touring mode. So here is the binding in the downhill ski position. You're gonna have these cables. They're gonna, as you flex forward, they're gonna activate and put pressure on the ski, so you get really good contact with the snow. But then you want to go uphill. You got skins on the bottom of your skis, and you don't want to fight that resistance of the cable every time you slide forward. So you flick this switch, and then the whole toe of the binding pivots freely, like an alpine touring binding would do. So you've got skins on, you're going straight up a mountain, and you've got no resistance, and you really get good efficiency with this design. You get back to the top, you lock that thing down. This is now locked, and you're just skiing a Telemark binding. This is not a touring binding, meaning touring, kicking, and gliding on a flat surface. This is for going straight up with skins on your skis. Now, the one thing about this binding is it wasn't the most powerful binding for the real big skis, for the really big boots. So Volet upped the game with the X2. The difference now is that the toe plate is about 3 centimeters longer. You can see if you put them side by side, so you get a lot more boot contact, a lot more control laterally. The pivot point of the hard wire is moved back further, about 26 millimeters, I think. So that's going to make it more active, meaning the cables are going to engage, the springs are going to engage sooner when you flex forward than they used to. So you get a lot more direct, active pressure to the ski quicker. And then they added these cartridges have a 25% stiffer spring in them. So more powerful. There you go. But still super lightweight and still has the free pivot mode. Again, so for uphill touring with skins on, no resistance, lock it back down. You can use your ski pole to activate that. Rip it down. If you're looking at the X2, then you're generally looking at these skis here, because really it's all about downhill. That's what you're doing. You're a downhill skier, but you realize you have to get around in the backcountry somehow, so you got the scales to do that. And you don't necessarily want to mess with skins all the time. If you're going straight up a mountain, though, you got to have skins. And then these 3-pin hardwire and cable, more in the middle of the range of the ski spectrum. A lot of downhill, but also some touring. And then the light duty BC stuff is certainly for more of your touring end. Okay, well, I tried my best to cram all that information in as quickly of a time frame as I could. Hope it helps. Feel free to give us a call if you need to. We are ORS Cross Country Skis Direct, and my name is Ryan. Thanks.